Welcome to TMRN, the Time Monk Radio Network. My forum name is Romans 828 is true, but they call me Romans for short. Today is the 16th of July, 2011, and today it is our distinct pleasure to have as our guest Bill Murphy, Chairman of GATA, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. As listeners may or may not know, GATA is basically the tip of the spear spearheading the fight to shine the light of day on the truth behind the manipulation of gold and silver prices by the international banking cartel. Bill, welcome to the WebBot Forum Roundtable.
Great to be here, Romans. Thank you for asking me.
Quite all right, our pleasure. The WebBot Forum administrator is Fox, and today he will be doing the recording and the technical support of the show. Several members of the forum were kind enough to join us tonight. They include moderator Brad and forum members Giuseppe, Muskrat, Odinson, RTG, and Vito. For listeners, this interview will assume that you have a fairly good understanding of finance and in particular an interest in precious metals. Bill's work at GATA is widely known around the world. But in this interview, we will ask him to expand on his Gold Antitrust Action Committee endeavors. Incidentally, you will find a wealth of information about Bill, his fellow GATA members, and much excellent precious metals resource data and links at the website of GATA, which is at www.gata.org, as well as Bill's personal website, the Cyberspace Cafe for Gold Investors, LeMetropoleCafe.com. That's LeMetropoleCafe.com. Listeners are encouraged to visit the website and support the organization. Bill Murphy has also been recently interviewed by Eric King of King World News and Sean of SGTReports.com on YouTube. Bill gave testimony at the CFTC hearing in March of last year, which enlightening revelations were brought out regarding the metals manipulation and caused the YouTube video of the hearing to go viral on the internet. As always, this interview will be available on YouTube for free on the WebBot Forum channel and at the webbotforum.com. Bill, are you ready for the interview?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Romans.
Okay, Brad, we'll have your first question.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for coming on and agreeing to do this interview. I've been following your work for some years now, but for listeners out there who've not heard of GATA or Le Metropole Cafe, can you please give us a brief history of how you got started in all of this and what GATA is actually all about, please?
Sure, I'd be delighted to. In September of 1998, I started my website at the Metropole Cafe, and about 2 weeks after I'd started, Long-Term Capital Management, the big hedge fund, blew up. And when I had been doing some gold work with a fellow who named Frank Benarosa, a longtime friend, and the work we were doing, and he found out or had heard that through good sources that Long-Term Capital Management was short 400 tons of gold. So when they blew up, I said, well, this is unbelievable because they're going to have to cover, and the gold's going to go through the roof because they were having to liquidate all their positions because they were bankrupt. So right after it, I noticed these bullion banks, Morgan, Chase at the time, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, were all selling around $300. Every time it would start to take off, they would come in unison and sell, and it happened day after day, and then I heard some other things, and having been a trader myself in the futures market, one time a limit position trader, I realized that the market they were capping it, was being stopped, and it was being done in an organized fashion. I mean, it wasn't just it was always the same people. And from what I heard, I realized that the market was being manipulated by these big banks. So right. I started writing a Scandal Gold and stuff like this and complaining, and one of my new subscribers was a fellow named Chris Powell, who's the editor of a daily newspaper in Manchester, Connecticut. And he said, look, I'm tired of you complaining about it. If you're right, this is a violation of antitrust laws. I have some experience with that in the newspaper business. If you put up $500, I'll put up $500, and maybe we can do something about it. And that's how GATA was formed in January of 1999. Somehow, some miracle, I was on CNBC 2 weeks later, and that was the last time I've ever been seriously interviewed by the U.S. media, once they heard what I had to say. That was in 1999. That's how bad this is. And that's the story. That's how we started.
Thanks, Bill. See, it obviously goes to the highest levels of government, this, do you think? Is it a coordinated...
Well, when we first started, we thought it was just the bullion banks. And then when the Bank of England did their ridiculous gold sale of May in 1999, of which Deutsche Bank, I wrote in my commentary the day before through sources, said the gold market's not going up any higher. And the next day they made the announcement, gold dropped $20, which was a lot back then, and it was dead in the water for a year to 2 years. And then we heard some other things, and we realized that you're right. It's the Federal Reserve Bank, the Treasury, Exchange Stabilization Fund, and some other central banks were all involved in this manipulation of the gold price. And it all started with Robert Rubin, as Secretary of Treasury under Clinton, and we can go into that later if you'd like to.
That's fascinating. Thanks very much, Bill. I'll hand you over now to Muskrat.
Hi, very good to be talking with you. What are the most effective and least effective actions GATA has done?
Well, it's another good question. We've been to Washington many times, met with the Speaker of the House. I met with President Bush's best friends in Austin, Texas, and faxes to the President and letters back from Lawrence Lindsay, his economic advisor. But in terms of, and I'll get back to this in a second, but we've had 4 international conferences in Durban, South Africa, at the very bottom in May 2001, Dawson City in the Yukon in August of 2005, in Washington 2008 in April, and then we're having one in London, Gold Rush 2011, in which we're just about sold out in August 4th, 5th, and 6th at the Savoy Hotel. And we got incredible speakers coming from all over the place, including Jim Sinclair, who hasn't made a presentation in 8 years. Eric Sprott is our major sponsor, and John Embryo Sprott will be there. Jim Rickards, this is a great story. I can't get into it too much there, but I just mentioned long-term capital management. This guy's really visible on the mainstream media, and he used to be long-term capital management's lawyer. And I have a letter from him in 1999. So if anybody knows more than GATA does about the real gold story and how right we are, it's him. He was on the other side. He knows everything. And he's speaking at our conference. Do you think he'd speak at our conference if we weren't right? So it's exciting as hell, that conference. So we think these conferences have been very effective. We've tried to get to the media, but basically we're blackballed. We went to England 2 years ago, and we met with all the right people, the FT, the Economist, Reuters, Bloomberg. Not one of them mentioned this, and the Bloomberg girl even said, we're not allowed to talk about you. So maybe this time it's going to be different because very few people have our track record from the very bottom. We've been pounding the table. We can get into that. We knew what was going to happen and why. And most of the people in the mainstream gold world and Wall Street are clueless, and most of them have been neutral to bearish all the way up. They just don't know diddly. So being effective, I don't know. We do talks like this, shows like this, and over the internet we do the best we can with my commentary, with Chris Powell. Has a GATA email list that gets his stuff, and we just pound the table wherever we can and highlight stuff that all fits together.
Excellent.
That answers the question.
Yes, definitely. Excellent. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Bill.
Bill, this is Romans again. What elements of GATA's strategy are currently in play?
Well, I didn't get to finish the last question. I was a little remiss there that I met with Ron Paul about 7 or 8 years ago, Congressman Paul, and met with him. Chris Powell and I went down to meet him in May because he was going to start going after the Fed and the Treasury to find out about an audit for gold and so on. And sure enough, right after we asked him to ask the right people about whether U.S. is involved in gold swaps or gold lending, and he did it the next day on TV, and then he did it again at one point, and then just this past week, right in front of Bernanke in a Fed testimony, he said, "Do you believe gold is money?" And Bernanke said, "No." It was just couldn't have had God a better obvious thing to show people how much they're against gold. I mean, gold's been money for 5,000 years, and he says gold's not money. It's just tradition, and they supposedly have 8,133.5 tons of it in our vaults, which they won't ever audit, or because we don't believe it's all there. So in terms of strategy, I mean, I said we've been to Washington. Congressman Paul's in our camp. Unfortunately, he's going to be retiring next year, which is the one person we have is not going to be there anymore. But I think it's just doing all these things, a little bit here, a little bit there, things that have built up the kind of people we have following us. I mean, the fact that we can attract the kind of people we have coming to this conference, I think, just says it all to us. I mean, you've got Hugo Salinas Price, Mr. Silver of Mexico. Peter George is the Mr. Gold of South Africa. Ben Davies of Hindi Capital gets quoted quite a bit. He's out there and a great deal. And Brian Hinchcliffe, the CEO of Kirkland Lake Gold, is going to be speaking. And he was the one who did the gold leasing operations at Goldman Sachs in London. He used to work for Goldman under Robert Rubin. So we know how this whole thing got started right from the person who did it.
Well, thanks. I did see Bernanke answer that question. Boy, he really hesitated before he said no, didn't he?
Well, it's unique. We've been trying to get people to ask specific questions and reporters to ask questions, and nobody will. My colleague, Chris, says the U.S. government would rather let out their nuclear secrets than what the real gold story is in the United States. And no one's done it before. And because that's why, because he doesn't know if they would have just gone a step further, is the United States involved in just put them on spot for the whole world in any gold swap or gold lending operations? Man, you've got to think twice about telling the world publicly about something like that if you're lying. I mean, what if some of it comes out against it? And that guy said, you don't know what kind of trouble you could get into.
That's for sure. Odinson is having some connectivity problems. Vito, would you like to ask Odinson's question?
You bet. Bill, this is Vito. And Odinson's question is, in your opinion, are GATA's supporters and followers more interested in it for personal investment reasons or for the civic mindedness of it?
Well, it's a good question. When we first started in it, and we felt with the very bottom now, silver at 4 and gold at 250, 60, we were pounding the table that it was being kept down unnaturally. And of course, we eventually got involved because I was writing about gold, and you're not going to have a business in it, and you're not going to make any money if it's not going to be a good thing for people to be in. Who wants to hear about it? And then Chris Powell was is civic minded to begin with, got involved, and quite frankly, then it became what we do. I mean, what we do is take on the richest and most powerful people in the world, and we're out to expose the truth. And so it's a combination of making money, but also, quite frankly, it's been the most fascinating, rewarding thing I've ever done. I mean, we're going after Morgan, and we testified him against in front of the world in this webcast that they had at the CFTC hearing, and Goldman Sachs and the U.S. government, and then the media, because they're complicit in this thing. People think we have a free press. It's a joke. We have a bought press. We don't have a free press. So it's fun to get to the truth. I'm going to be getting together some of the things I'm going to talk about in London, and one of the things I'm going to mention is that you look back and you sort of laugh when people thought the Earth was flat. The Earth was round. But I mean, so many people back then thought it was flat. Well, people think we have free markets here, free press. They don't even understand how much they're manipulated. And of course, this is all going to be known as years go by and down the road. Of course, we think it's going to lead to a disaster, and eventually this major scandal will get will see the light of day. But I have fun talking that we live on planet Ghana versus most people live on planet Wall Street. And when you live on planet Ghana, you view what's going on in the world and markets from a totally different perspective. I'll give you a very good example. Just a few weeks ago, out of nowhere, with oil sinking, they announced, the government announced, Obama announced that they were going to let oil go from in 60 days for this strategic petroleum reserve. And it's only done it twice before in history. Once was the Iraq War, and one was during Katrina. It's only supposed to be used in emergency. So immediately, and of course gold and silver got killed and oil went down a little bit, but mostly I was pounding the table and I said, this is a farce. This has nothing to do with oil. Nothing. It has to do with the quantitative easing was ending, and they desperately need some more, but they can't do it some more because unless they can come up, they said unless there's deflation, the economy's really falling apart. So they couldn't have commodity prices taking off, with what gold and silver were doing. So they did whatever they could to smash it. And, of course, they had the gold cartel selling, and that brought in other selling and so on. And there's a proof of this because that was on 23rd of June, I believe. And they just had the announcement of the Fed meetings on June 21st and 22nd, which was just announced this week. And in that meeting, they said that they're going to contemplate some sort of quantitative easing if things are okay, if it allows them to do so. And it was the next morning that they had made this announcement about oil. These aren't coincidences. And so we knew when silver and gold went down like it did, it had nothing to do with the fundamentals, and we knew it wouldn't stay down there. And then they rated it again 2 weeks ago yesterday, and gold's gone up 10 days in a row. We know that was bogus too. So when you live on planet God, it's very helpful to understand markets. I mean, whether it's the plunge protection team in the stock market when it comes back often late in the day after 3 o'clock, when they float rumors that disappear the next day. You already know what they're doing to manipulate the bond market by forcing interest rates down. And you just get an idea of what the way markets really are and not what you read about from the Muppets on CNBC and people like that.
Wow. Well, thank goodness the public has data, and I personally appreciate it. My question is illegal collusion, manipulation, Enron-like, scandal, fraud, clandestine, cartel, biggest fleecing of all time, lies, price fixing, fractional reserve practices. All these to me describe the actions taken by the BIS, the Bank for International Settlements, the U.S. Treasury, the Federal Reserve System, J.P. Morgan Chase, Barrick Gold, perhaps Goldman Sachs et al. Can you, for the first-time listener of this subject matter, although we've gone into it in some detail, just give a very quick nutshell description of what GATA is all about?
Well, GATA, first of all, is all about just what you mentioned, and you're right. I mean, Goldman Sachs was the ringleader years ago, and they disappeared in the gold market like about 2 years ago. Well, they were the ring. I don't know what happened, why, but they just left. But it are those people. And I mean, Barrick isn't involved in it anymore, but they were instrumental at the very bottom, working with the bullion banks and so on. And whatever they were trying to do down there failed. And as the market's, it's gone up now 11 years in a row. But we're just about exposing exactly what you said. And the more we dig into it, the more we learn how nefarious it is. And unfortunately, none of these things see the light of day until they blow up. I mean, what did Harry Markopoulos tried to expose Madoff to the SEC for 10 years? He told them what was going on. They didn't do anything. The CFTC has an investigation into silver now for 3 years almost. Nothing. They have one good guy, Elliot Ness, Bart Chilton, is a terrific guy, and he's trying so hard to do something. but he's against 4 others, so he can't get anything done. And of course, Morgan is the Fed's bank, and Goldman Sachs is the Treasury's bank. I mean, you study it. I mean, it's very clear, and they have the inside information, so who knows how much money they make getting filters from that, from what official policy is going to be or what they're going to do in the markets and so on. That's the reason they're so close together. And, of course, there's a lot of people today talking about how the big banks have gained all this favor, when the bailout and when we had the crisis and financial crisis, and how the little guy's getting nothing and getting worse off in America while the big fat cat bankers are doing just fine again. I mean, the big joke is that they do something wrong, and like a Morgan, and I don't know, did something in the mortgages and got fined $35 million. What a joke. They should ban them from trading. I mean, really punish them. $35 million, it's not a rounding error for them. So we're just going to continue to expose this manipulation of the gold and silver markets. We can get into it later. I think the silver market's going to blow up. They've been short silver in conjunction with gold because gold's the really key to them, but you couldn't have silver go one way and gold the other. It would look too obvious, the capping, so they made a decision a long time ago to manipulate the silver market, and that's what our presentation in front of the CFTC was about, thanks to Andrew Maguire, the whistleblower, who, by the way, is going to be speaking at our conference for the first time in London on August 6th. So we're really excited about that because a lot of people, I guess, going to get into this later, wonder whether Andrew Maguire even exists, or whether we made him up or something like that. But that's a story into itself.
Well, that does bring up my next question. Andrew Maguire, as the public understands it, he was a whistleblower for the CFTC on the gold manipulation by J.P. Morgan. It was reported that he and his wife were hit by a hit-and-run driver at the time of his testimony. I've always thought that smelled like a rat. Maybe you could comment on that and tell us, have any of the GATA members been targets of physical harm or governmental agency audits or any other kind of harassment?
Well, first of all, I'll mention what happened to me about 9 years ago, and I'll get into Andrew. This could have been just a fluke, but within a 6-week period, my car was stolen. It was found the day after my insurance was paid on the highway right next to me with money in the front seat and my cashmere sweater in the back seat. Nothing wrong with the car. Then my website was hacked. It was never been hacked. I mean, I've actually had it hacked a tiny bit, but it was recently. But what came out there, the hacking, what made me look like a retard. I mean, in my worst days after going out on the town, I couldn't sound that bad. I had no idea. I didn't do it. And then at the end of that 6-week period, I was at a restaurant a block and a half from my home at about 11:30 at night, and I was coming home in a nice neighborhood, and I got hit with brass knuckles, and I thought I was out cold. So that could have been them, the bad guys, trying to scare me. I know nobody would fly with me for a long time. They thought the planes were going to get blown up. Or that was just a coincidence. I don't know, but nothing's happened to me before or since like it ever. Regarding Andrew Maguire, the story was he was feeding the CFTC information since November. Remember, the meeting was in March 25th of last year, and he was sending them emails and telling them what Morgan was going to do in advance. Because he got mad because Morgan, they would go to the bars and they would start drinking, and they have certain signals how they act in the markets and what they do, and they were talking about how they were ripping off the public, and he just got fed up with the whole thing. Remember, he's formerly a Goldman Sachs guy. This is no dummy, and so he thought the CFTC was going to have him make a presentation. Of course, they wouldn't let him, even though he had emails and copies of them, which he gave us, which we presented. I said what they were going to do in advance. And he was pissed, so he got a hold of my colleague, Adrian Douglas, who's on our board of directors, and Adrian got a hold of me and was right like 2 days before, or the day before, and said, boy, have I got a bombshell. So I made my testimony, and, this again, another coincidence. Remember how so many coincidences here. is that the only testimony that was blocked out TV-wise and sound-wise was mine. It was all-day hearings, 15 people. The only thing was blocked out was mine. As soon as I was done, it went back on again. Then we had it set up with Bart Chilton, a good guy. He was going to give me a softball question. I don't know if he knew that I was going to bring the McGuire thing in, but the chairman tried to cut it off after the first round. And Bart said, no, I got some more questions. So they went around some more, and they finally got to me, right near the end. And I had one long page to read about what Andrew McGuire had to say about the emails at J.P. Morgan, how they're manipulating the market. And I had the emails to pass out to the press. Of course, they wouldn't even mention it. We had this big bombshell, and that did go on the Internet because they weren't ready for it. They knew about my testimony, but they did not know about this. And, of course, that's what went viral around the Internet. And, we thought the press would sensationalize. Of course, they never do with us. It's always not allowed to talk about it. So the next day, Andrew and his fiancée at the time were hit by a car. The guy hit 2 cars trying to get away. There was a helicopter chase. They finally got the guy. I don't know what's happened or since. I haven't heard a thing. Andrew had been talking with, I can't get into it, with other people since then. I'm hoping to learn more at the conference, honestly, but there's been other stuff done since then. He was hoping something big would come out by the conference. I don't know. But this will be his first appearance publicly, and I'm sure he's going to get into it, and he is for real, and it's very exciting, actually, but it's typical how the mainstream press just won't touch it. Pathetic.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for that elucidation.
We are speaking with Bill Murphy, chairman of GATA. Please visit the GATA website at www.gata.org, as well as Bill's personal website, La Metropole Cafe, at www.lametropolecafe.com. Our next subject matter will concern precious metals and manipulation. Brad has the next question. Go ahead, Brad.
Hi, Bill. Do you ever see this manipulation ending, or will they just be able to write overwhelming numbers of transient shorts all day, every day?
Well, people keep saying, some of the know-nothings say, well, geez, some manipulated market is going up 11 years in a row. But that's not the point. Just on this the other day, somebody, I forget, was saying, a writer for the Financial Times, if gold get kept up with inflation, it would be $2,400 an ounce. Look how lousy it's done over the years. Well, hello. That's what the suppression scheme's been all about. Thank you. Why don't you come to our conference, Mr. I think his name is Jack Farkey or something like that, and understand what this game's all about. And we have said all along, we call it a managed retreat. People say that the central banks have 28 to 30,000 tons in their vaults left. We believe they only have 10 to 15,000 tons, that the rest of that gold is gone via loan operations and so on and sold secretly. It's not there anymore. And basically what it means is they're running out of ammunition to do the dirty, to meet a huge supply-demand deficit. How gold was kept down below 300 for those years was because they were just dumping all this gold into the marketplace. But we knew that they were dumping too much too cheaply, and that this would be unsustainable, that demand for physical gold was much greater than the establishment was telling people. Of course, they couldn't get into that because then they would have to say, where's the supply coming from? So they just, they've all been working with the wrong numbers, part of my presentation. I mean, it's all false, and that's the reason these mainstream gold world people have basically missed this move and are either disingenuous about it or don't get it. They're just stupid. So to answer your question, first of all, we think they've basically hit the wall in silver. That's why silver went to 50. So they can always get a little more gold here and there from something, beg, borrow, and steal. But they don't. The silver's not there. All they have is their paper shorts. So, and it started to get away from them when they raised the margins and they had the attack from silver and got it from 50 down to 32. But now it's composed itself, and it's starting to make a move again, and they got a lot of specs out of the market, and they don't have the tools to stop it next time. So my guess is, one, it's going to blow, and because silver is going to blow up, And two, the demand for gold is increasing from big players all over the world, the Indians, the Chinese, the Russians, the big money people that know that the euro and European system is going in the tank. And, of course, the biggest joke here is the United States, with some of our states broke. And the fiscal situation here is beyond comprehension how bad it is. And no matter what they talk about, nothing's ever done. So the financial system in Europe and the United States is just horrific. And so the worse it gets, more and more people want gold and silver. The more they buy, the more difficult it is for the gold cartel to come up with supply to keep the price down. So that's why we've been so confident all these years of what's coming and why. And they're just going to blow up, I guess, is the way of ending this. It's going to end at some point when they just either gold could be revalued at a much higher price, or they can't stop it. All they do is control it. We have certain James McShirley, one of our speakers, and he's going to talk about the mechanics and what happens in a sense of, it used to be a 2% rule. Now it's mostly 1%. Never goes up more than 2%. Certain breakouts are also, they just do certain things. They attack at certain times of the day, play with their plan A, plan B, plan C stuff. We just talk about the same thing over and over again. So the answer to the question at the end is they're going to blow up.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Bill. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hi, Bill. This is Giuseppe.
Sir.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Bill, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Can you describe to us how frustrating it is fighting the system when you know for certain you are correct, but the system is designed to continue corruption for the status quo?
Yeah, it gets very frustrating. Like I said, when we went to Europe and met all these big writers, don't even. What we resented is it's not even he said, she said. Well, here's what these people have to say, and here's why. No, it's just it's like we're not allowed to be heard. It's extremely frustrating when you do all these things and go to Congress and as we could get into stuff there and just and you know what's going to happen, and we know it. We put a $246,000 full-page color ad in the Wall Street Journal, January 31st, 2008, ahead of the financial crisis. $250,000. In it, we talked about, because of the manipulation of the gold market coming, catastrophe and disaster is coming. And guess what? The whole financial system in the fell apart. We were right. We didn't get one query about why we would do something like that. Nothing. It wasn't even written. And that gets back to my gripe against the press. And of course, the mainstream gold world is pathetic. The World Gold Council, Gold Fields Mineral Services, they're all in lines and get paid for by these bullion banks and the whole thing. And the leading funder for World Gold Council a while back was Barrick Gold, and it's just awful. And then you bring up these things, and so many people in the mainstream gold world, silver world, won't do anything about it, won't even talk to you, run away from you. We're trying to help them. Oh, they make me sick to my stomach. I mean, it's a great deal of frustration. It's just a total disdain for these people as humans. And the people that don't know about it, don't have time to listen to it, got other things to do in their life. Well, that's totally more than understandable. But these bums, I have just no use for them whatsoever. Total contempt. I hope that comes through.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Bill, are you familiar with the WebBots?
Yes.
Okay, so in the latest WebBot report, there's a paragraph headline, Patriot Act, which says officialdom or politicians will begin a campaign against people who own gold and silver. They will spew slurs and lies, and this will preface to criminalization the possession of precious metals. The same was said in previous reports, or alluded to it, somewhat of a confiscation of precious metals. This past week, Bernanke said that gold is not money. How can the government legally confiscate your personal collection?
Well, this is just my personal opinion now. I cannot imagine that in 1,000 years, anything close to what we just talked about, because the rest of the world would laugh at the United States. Laugh. With again, the Indians, Russians, Chinese, other major countries, big banks, pension funds in the United States buying gold, they would just laugh at us. I mean, it would expose our entire system, because the first thing is people say, well, why are they doing that? That's ridiculous. First of all, hardly anybody in the United States owns gold. Back in the 30s when they confiscated, it was tied to the dollar, and there was a lot of gold ownership, and it was a whole different setup now. Right now, there's almost no interest in gold. Even after 11 years in the recent run, my website's blah. I've never seen anything like it. So getting back to the question, there hasn't been much interest even in the shares. A lot of them haven't done anything in years, despite what gold and silver have done. Mm-hmm. I just don't see how I mean, it was, as I said, it's beyond my comprehension. I mean, I said the only possible way is that we go to a total fascist state or totalitarian state, in which the whole system changes. I mean, I just can't imagine why. Who cares about gold and silver? What are they going to do with the silver too? Say no, you can't own silver. What? You can't put silver in your. You can't use it for your business.
Bill, so in your view, you don't see this prediction as ever coming true, or maybe if it does, it'll be muted or very small?
I can't imagine anything like that, for the main reason that the rest of the world would just start laughing at the United States. No. And I think the dollar would just completely collapse. I mean, it would expose expression, thou dost protestest too much. I mean, to even, they don't even want to talk about gold. I mean, like some of these questions, you never, and so that's why Bernanke was stunned the other day when Ron Paul, for the first time we can ever remember, at least in all the years we've been doing it, somebody asked somebody a serious question on a spot like that about gold. And he didn't know what to do, because nobody ever asked it. So I just couldn't imagine it. I don't think I'm going to be right here. I just can't imagine. They just don't want to talk about it. And you want to get the subject talked about, that'll do it.
Well, thank you on that. On GATA, you uncovered the tungsten-filled gold bar stories. Though your research have found that the Chinese or the Indians or anyone else really got conned into buying these fakes, to me, it's a bit perplexing, since no one has retaliated to this con. Or if retaliation is ongoing, can you shed some light on it? I just don't understand how
honestly, I don't either. I've never got into it too much. We've had some of our people report on it. I've heard a lot about it. God has never got into it too much. We really stick to stuff that we know that's fact or strongly supported by what we've learned. If it's not fact, and a lot of our stuff's public information, or it's stuff we've been told by reliable sources. When it gets into something like that might be true, I think it could be. There's been a number of reports about it, but yeah, I stay away from that, because there's too much stuff that we know to be true that we get into that we don't need to go there, because all we would have to do is start pounding a table on something like that and somebody prove it to be wrong, and then your credibility goes right down the drain. So I wish I could talk more about it, but I've always stayed away from it. I mean, we bring it up because people talk about it, but that's it.
Thanks, Bill. One more question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Cliff High's webbots have been forecasting what he calls the rich riots, which is rich people, I guess, who own precious metals and have them stored in vaults, will want to claim it and remove it out of the vaults. Of course, because of this, the vaults probably will not be able to satisfy everyone that wants their metal back. I'm assuming that would lead to the panic, or that would be the rich riot. Do you see a forecast like that? Can you see a scenario like this?
What, in a way, yes. But from a little different perspective, we stumbled into the realizing that many of what these banks do is they sell gold and silver to the same people over and over and over again and store it for the people. So, but they don't have, and then they take all the money and invest it and use it for funds. So they tell people it's like fractional banking. They tell people that they have all this gold and silver. It's like they're in what they call unallocated accounts. So, and we've been starting to make a little stink about that, and we think, of course, this is a big problem because obviously if a number of people all come to claim their gold and silver at the same time and the banks can't deliver it, I don't know that you panic or riot, but you're going to have a lot of very, very upset people. And I do think that we're going to have riots in our country. I think the standard of living, I've been saying this for years and years, it's going to go down 35% in the United States. Instead of 2 cars, you got 1 car. 2 TVs, 1 TV. You know, eat out twice a week, eat out once a week. It's just, we're broke. Things have to be cut back. Their standard of living has been way too high for what we have, and that's what all these deficits are about. We just can't afford it anymore. So that's where I think there's going to be small riots, not necessarily major ones, but you're going to see stuff like you saw in Greece. No doubt in my mind when this starts happening and things have to be cut, and the average person isn't going to understand what's going on and why. And and they're going to be just really upset. It's going to be very bad. And, of course, that's going to fuel more money into gold and silver, which, you never want it for that reason, but that's what I see happening, where I see riots coming. I just think when it comes to the gold and silver that you're just going to have a bunch of it could create quite a scene when a lot enough people all want to get their gold and silver around the same time, and the people that these banks can't deliver it. So we'll see, but I think that's coming.
Well, Bill, thank you very much for your answers. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Bill, this is Vito again, and for what it's worth, I do see Gaddis Day coming, and the private gold owner, the American gold owner, getting their day. And on that note, you've been on record since 2005 or before as predicting gold eventually hitting the price of $3,000 to $5,000 an ounce. Given the latest increase that we've had, when do you see this price of $3,000 to $5,000 coming?
Well, it's an interesting story. I love to tell it. Is at our conference in the Gold Rush 21, and the price was $436. I said this is going to take $3,000 to $5,000 to clear the market. I mean, it's just a number, quite frankly. So I've stayed with the same thing over and over to be consistent. But I mean, it can go to 3,000 or 10,000. I don't know. But I felt back then that was a safe prediction. And again, $436 was the price. We had at our conference. I was a guy named Andrei Bykov, who was an economic consultant of President Putin, showed up out of nowhere. And by the way, he's coming to our conference in London. 6 years later, he's back. 2 days after he said it was the finest conference he'd ever attended, and that's all he does is go to conferences. He was a big time guy in Russia. And 2 days after the conference, the gold price was doing nothing. It started to explode 2 days later after he left, and it went up $300 an ounce in the following 9 months. And about a month after the conference, there was a picture taken of Putin holding a gold bar. I mean, which we have. But so it was very exciting. So I don't, in terms of the timetable, it's so difficult because they manage the price so much. And a lot of it might depend upon, world events, how soon these crises kick in. But I could see it, I don't know, the next 2 or 3 years, 3,000 to 5,000.
Do you see the price eventually going even far, far above, excluding
it's
anything?
possible.
What do you think about the Sorry, Bill.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What do you think about the possibilities of hyperinflation happening, or another false flag event, say, perhaps? And what would it do to the price of gold?
There's no telling what can do it. If you equate it to the amount of dollars that have been printed and what's going on there, when it comes to silver, say, what do you think the silver price can do? I say, pick a number. There's no telling what silver can do. It's gone.
Sure.
And the good news for silver is that gold's so expensive that a lot of people are buying silver now because they can't afford gold. So they're loading up on silver, which is making the gold cartel, which is what I call this group, it's making their position a nightmare. You know, you don't need to know what, I mean, I have no idea about these numbers. I know silver's going past 100, that's for sure. But, I mean, some people think it's going to go to $400 an ounce. I don't know. But the thing is, we know the dynamics because of what we know on Planet Gata. We know what's going to happen. The timetable's always tough, like when they just rated the market over the past month. You can't, and they can slow it down. But the more they've done this, they've created too much demand at too low prices, the bigger the move's going to be. So I'm just confident that it's going to be much, much higher and that fortunes will be made. And the exact numbers, I mean, my guess is no better than anyone else, and that's why I'm just going to stick to 3,000 to 5,000, because I've been saying it when it was at 436, and here we are at almost at 1,600.
I'm with you. I'm just glad that I live on planet Gata. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Muskrat again. Some suggest that the paper price of silver could go up to around $40 an ounce and then decline to around $25 an ounce briefly before beginning the ascent past 50. How likely do you view that scenario?
I would be absolutely stunned and totally wrong if that were to occur. You've had the correction down to 32 and change. Silver has built a massive base between $33 and $38 an ounce over since late April when the J.P. Morgan and the crooks went after it. They've depleted a lot more silver too cheaply. It's built a huge base. It closed above $38. I think it was Thursday, and it followed through Friday on the upside. It came back and tested it. I think down about 38.17. It's getting ready to explode. I think. You know, the first key was $38 an ounce. The second key, in my book, is around $39.30 to $39.50. We're just about there. If you look at a weekly chart, you'll see why that the price could start really accelerate again if we take out, let's say, $39.15. So I think you've already had that correction. I would be dead wrong if it goes down from here and makes a new low. It had plenty of time to do it. You know, we're going to have our conference again. Hopefully that's going to make an impact. And, you know, the Andrew Maguire's hearing the price of silver. This was in March 25th of last year. Price is 16 and change. It went to 50. You know, in a year after. We think that thanks to Andrew Maguire and what we presented, had a major impact on the silver market. And we hope that this conference is going to do the same. So we'll see. But no, the answer is I would be flabbergasted if silver went down again.
Thank you very much for that answer. And I have a question now from Forum Member Plain. They ask, many opponents of the gold-backed currency use terms such as bullion banksters to express their feeling that the old days were not so good and that the gold was a manipulated item. The crime of 1973 is one example of this. How would you respond to the fears that the banksters have too much of the gold and thus a return to greenbacks would be better?
Well, I honestly, I'm not sure I get the whole question because I just don't sure I understand the question. I'll do the best I can. In essence, they don't, again, the rest of the world is starting to rule the gold market, whereas in days past it used to be the United States had the gold. And we just don't have the total control like we had in the past. And we don't know how much gold the United States have. I said 8,134 tons. Do they have that, or is it leased out, or is it swapped? I mean, it gets complicated. We might only have half the gold we say we have. I don't see, gold coming into any major role. I mean, but I'm not a sophisticate on that sort of an issue. I mean, I again try to stick to what I know, and I know that the demand has been much greater than supply, and they've gone through supply, and that it's way undervalued. Even the establishment said it should be, if it just kept pace with inflation, 2,400. So I go at it from being an ex-commodity trader. From soybeans to pork bellies to hogs to copper, and I understand trading, and I understand supply demand, and I understand how markets work, and I understand how markets get rigged, and I know what the prices of gold and silver are going to have to do to clear the market. They're way, way undervalued here, even after the run, and there's no telling what silver can do. So I stick to that. What could happen with the government and what they might do, or this or that, I'll just go back again to what I said, that if they start messing around in the gold and silver area, well, they're already messing around with it, but I mean, if they do things, that's the reason they don't want anyone to know and the public to know, anything that was, they won't even want to talk about it. So I don't see anything changing except them continually trying to get out of the scandal that they've got themselves in and the fraud. And I think that's when the S is going to hit the fan, is when the silver market blows up. And there's force majeures and defaults, and the CFTC is going to have to explain how they can investigate this for years and do nothing. And I'll tell you one thing, I can't wait to be like that old guy Joe McCarthy was in front of Congress, screaming and yelling at the CFTC and the politicians and just pounding the table and just letting them have it, you know, after what they've done. And a bunch of them ought to go to jail.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bill, I noticed you've really been in kind of an up mood here lately with gold hitting new all-time highs. It's got to do your heart some good there.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've gone up 10 days in a row if you consider the July 4th holiday trading period. And, I mean, I don't think I can ever recall gold doing that. I mean, 10 days in a row after they rated it 2 weeks ago or Friday, and it's very exciting. And to be honest with you, I'm stunned. My website's blah.
Yeah.
It's like we learned on Thursday the specs were selling. They talk about an overcrowded market. I've never seen a less crowded market. Everyone's more concerned about it going down, fear, than going up, greed. And when markets get killed is when everyone's greedy and everyone's buying, and it's overweight. You know, from a sentiment standpoint, it gets way overbought. It's not that way at all. There's no telling what it can do here.
Yeah, it's got to do your heart some good. Our next question is going to be from RTG. Go ahead, RTG.
Hi, Bill. Hi, Bill. It's been stated on the GATA website as well as Jeffrey Christian that the amount of gold bullion trading in London has just become so huge, and compared to the amount of bullion on deposit, it's by a factor of over 100 to 1, and if some large bullion investor actually demanded physical delivery, well, that action could lead to a breaking of the bank that sold the bullion, as well as a run on the entire paper gold system. Now, we've seen the availability of gold, how tight the availability of gold in London is by your own Adrian Douglas. He caught the London Precious Metals Clearing Corporation assigning multiple QSIP numbers to the same gold bar. Just in your estimation, how much longer can they continue this before it just all finally blows up?
Well, this is a fun one because Adrian Douglas first was highlighted to me or got involved with me about that he felt that he was going into the volumes about being 50 to 1 in London, and basically about the total the huge amount of allocated accounts and the over in London. And I said, geez, Adrian, because I didn't know anything about it, and I said, if we're wrong here, we're just going to stick our neck out on this one. I said, man, the establishment can come right back at us. And he was very confident. And one of our supporters was testifying, Harvey Organ, at this hearing. And Adrian asked a question and said something about, stood up or something in support of Harvey. Said something about 50 to 1. And Jeff Christian popped in that it was not just 50 to 1, it was 100 to 1. I almost fell off my chair because here's a guy who's helping our case and didn't realize what he was doing. Because the idea being, with all this stuff being traded, it's traded in the paper market, or it's traded in the physical market, but the volume's too high for what's really there. And so it sheds a light that something is very remiss in the silver market. And you never know, when can it blow? I don't know, but these things happen. One day it just happens, and you'll never, hardly ever will predict it. These things come out of nowhere. Somebody, some way, just decides to clean out the physical silver market, buy everything. Why it hasn't happened? We can't understand it. But we know a lot of people are just afraid of the governments. They're afraid of doing it because of retaliation, and I don't know why. I mean, the COMEX inventories are way down. Total's about 100 million ounces, and you could just go after you could just go to the July contract now and just take delivery of all the silver, but they never do. I don't understand that, honestly, but I know that it's going to get very precarious, and I would expect silver to accelerate in the very near future. And we might be looking at $50 again, who knows, maybe around the time of our conference or not long after.
Okay. Well, Bill, going back to the clearing corporation, the LPMCL, there are, 6 banks own it. Okay. Now, the Bank of England is supposed to be supervising the operations of the LBMA and the LPMCL. Do you have you ever heard exactly who is responsible? Is the Bank of England ultimately responsible for a default, or would it be the 6 members of the clearing corp that have the ultimate responsibility? Has anyone ever broached that subject that you know of?
No, I mean, because you never get any real answers, but it's an interesting question, and the whole thing's a joke. I mean, J.P. Morgan, everyone knows, is the major short. At one point, 30,000 contracts in silver. I don't know what it is now, 20, 25, 18, but still by far. And here, they're the custodian for the silver ETF. It's like the hens and the fox in the hen house. The biggest gold short is HSBC. Who's the custodian for the big gold ETF? HSBC. Who's investigating the silver market? The CFTC. Who's chairman of the CFTC? A Goldman Sachs guy. Who's the Fed's bank? J.P. Morgan. Yeah, who's the Treasury's bank? Goldman Sachs. Right. They're all in bed with each other. I mean, nothing's... So when you get back to the Bank of England, they're the ones who with their announced sale of auctions in advance in 1999 in May, brought more people, because nobody sells. You don't try to. If you want to maximize profits, you don't announce what you're going to sell in advance and then sell it at the lowest price. Everyone laughed at them. That brought more people to realizing GATA was right than almost anything else during our existence. Mm-hmm. So all I know is, what would it matter who's supposed to do what? They're all the same. They're all in bed with each other, and when it blows up, how it's going to affect things, I don't know. But they'll all lie and cheat, steal, and back each other up.
All right. So they're all joined at the hips. In other words.
Absolutely, no question.
All joined at the hip. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Bill. Final question.
And that goes to the exchanges, the COMEX, and the CME, and what they do with the margin requirements. They're all in bed with each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, all these practices of the LBMA and LPMCL, all the knowledgeable players in the market know about it by now. And therefore, are these institutions, as well as the U.S. and U.K. governments, vulnerable to blackmail by either the Chinese, Russians, Indians, Arabs, or anyone else with the means to break the bank by demanding delivery of a large quantity of bullion?
That's correct.
Well, they would be vulnerable to blackmail then, and it could even affect our foreign policy.
Well, it could. I mean, basically, I would think the United States would consider that an act of war.
Mm-hmm.
That's how serious this thing is. what Chris Powell said in jest is not in jest. They would rather have our nuclear secrets exposed than what we've done with our gold, or what's going on with the U.S. gold market.
Right. Got it. Thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Bill, this is Romans again. Got a question for you. Do you feel that the sovereign debt defaults will be the catalyst to bring down the current debt-based system, or something else?
Well, your guess is as good as mine, Romans. I really don't know. I mean, I know that's bad. I know the situation in the United States, which Republicans and Democrats are all, I mean, they're dancing around each other. I mean, they're not going to do anything till we have a terrible problem. I don't know. We're broke. I mean, what it's going to be, all I know is that more and more people are realizing how bad and hopeless the situation is, and that they're not going to do anything, and except the only way out is in printing money and inflation. That's it. There's no other way out. I mean, it's so obvious. That's why they were talking the other day, well, maybe we'll do another kind of QE3. What do you mean maybe? It's a political year. They're going to do anything they can and disguise it if they have to goose the markets. And more people are beginning to realize there's no other option. And gold, even at these prices, looks more and more attractive. If nothing else, to hold what you have.
Well, I guess we can all agree that it's going to definitely collapse. Who knows what the catalyst will be? But one more follow-up real quick. What role do you foresee GATA having and playing in the reinstituting of gold and silver as real money after the collapse? Will you guys have a role in that?
I don't think so. I mean, we'll probably get blamed for it. Instead, that's just the way these things go, We don't do it for the credit, and everyone else, we're human. Everyone likes to see great job and good stuff and get a name out there and be recognized, but you can't do stuff for things like that because a lot of the times, like I said, it's the reverse happens. You get blamed for what happens instead of people understanding you're just trying to help people out and get the truth out there. So I don't know what's going to happen. Again, the problem is, what are you going to do if we don't have the gold, which we don't think we have? There hasn't been a legitimate audit, maybe ever. They say 1955, but I've looked into that, and they're not even so sure about that. So nobody knows if there's any gold there.
Well,
how can you get it? Then to even have talks like this, that would have to be dealt with. And what if it comes out the United States has 30% of the gold that's there? I mean, I don't know. I mean, naturally, we're having this conference. We're not shy. We'd love to tell our story to the world, but it's very hard because the media won't print it. So if we have our day, maybe our London conference in a few weeks will do it. Maybe it won't. But we're having a lot of fun trying, and a lot of wonderful people, and most exciting, rewarding thing I've done in my life. So just for that, I'm very grateful.
Well, I think we're going to have a worldwide gold rush before this is all over.
Yeah, well, it hasn't started yet. That's what I alluded to earlier.
Right.
It's unbelievable how few people. I bet you if you asked 100 people how many are involved in gold, silver, or even the shares, you'd be lucky to get 2 people to say yes.
Yep, I agree. Okay, we're speaking with Bill Murphy, chairman of GATA. Please visit GATA website at www.gata.org, as well as Bill's personal website, La Metropole Cafe, at www.lametropolecafe.com. Our next question is from Vito.
Yes, Bill, Vito again on the subject of collapse. Gerald Celente has said that even if we did get the U.S. dollar Federal Reserve note backed by gold, that it's too late. The U.S. economy is doomed. Then on the other hand, Catherine Austin Fitts thinks that the economy will not implode, but instead will have a controlled, slow burn, as she says. And now I ad-lib to destruction with eventual economic surf-like conditions, if the powers that be are successful. What do you think the future is for Americans, and what do you think are the aims of those in power?
Well, for the most important is to stay in power and for the big money to keep the big money and to implement policies that's good for them and not what's good for the average American. And as I mentioned earlier, I think the standard of living is going to go down 35%, and that's a lot. And there's going to be people are going to be very unhappy. There will be riots to some degree, in my opinion, and it's going to get the mood in the United States of the public is going to get very depressed. That the standard of living is gone, and a lot of the people what they dreamed, especially the older people and the people that they're just going to realize that everything they believed in and thought and they lived for in terms of work so hard for, it's not going to be. It's not the end of the world. It's just not going to be what they thought it was going to be, and that's a disappointment. So I think that's what I think is going to happen, and I think that it's going to get really ugly. And so what that means and how it plays out, I don't know, but it's not going to be pretty.
Well, if you had to commit to a camp, would you be for the implosion or for the slow burn?
Well, yeah, I see, but it's a great question. But how do you know? Because look at the flash crash, and look what could happen. We know what the plunge protection team, and I bet you none of your listeners have ever even heard of the working group in financial markets.
True.
It's a lot of big hedge funds and the big headed by Goldman Sachs, and the counterparty risk management group. Well, they're getting together to at certain times to work on the markets and to prop them up again. The plunge protection team. These things, so a lot of the markets may be artificial, so they can disappear overnight. Now, I'll give you a good example. The Madoff thing happened because of the financial crisis. People wanted their money. But if we hadn't had that financial crisis, Madoff might still be a superstar. So I guess my point is that things can come up out of nowhere in which you'll get the implosion. So I think the slow burn, as you call it, is a given. And then if you get an event like what caused the Madoff thing to blow up, then you could get just a total disaster. Just boom.
Well, do you think derivatives might be the one that takes us down eventually?
Sure. The derivatives market is, I don't know what the number of people were throwing around. I'm not a numbers guy. $250 trillion. That's something ridiculous. And the leverage that some of these people have and what they've done in exposure, which helped cause the 2008 debacle, it's all there, and it can happen again because, again, that's what God has been warning about. Gold is a barometer, and they've been controlling the barometer, making it dysfunctional. Lawrence Summers followed Robert Rubin in the Treasury Secretary, and in 1998 he co-authored a paper with a guy named Barsky at Harvard called Gibson's Paradox and the Gold Standard, in which he showed how gold and interest rates are related. So people say, well, why is the government involved in gold? Well, first of all, what do all your friends say, or you guys say, when the price of gold's going nuts? What's the headline you hear about? Too much inflation, a crisis. It's bad for the politicians, bad for the bankers, bad for Wall Street. So a rising gold price, they hate it because it says things aren't good. So that's why they made the gold being the barometer, they made it dysfunctional by manipulating the price instead of letting it trade freely. So again, it went from Rubin to Summers, and that's why they do it. And so when you've got things that are so out of whack, things can come out of nowhere and just collapse. And that's probably what's going to happen. Something that none of us can think of here that will hit the markets, and it will be just too stunning, and it'll overpower their ability to keep the markets in play. I write my thing at the Metropole Cafe that I talk about every day a little bit about behavioral finance, and that's what these people do. A lot of you have heard the talk about the CPI and the employment numbers and the spin they put on things, and then, of course, manipulating gold and silver in the stock market. It's all about to try to garner confidence and in the public and get them to spend and put out things that are favorable to the establishment and the party in power, to make it easier for them to have things go their way. Because let's face it, I mean, what happens? Joblessness continue as it is, or unemployment stays in the tank or gets worse. I mean, the people in power get voted out. Somebody out of a job doesn't want, or somebody's afraid to lose his job, so we need someone else to fix it. So the bottom line is they try to do whatever they can to portray a better picture than things are instead of let things just be what they are. So from my standpoint, it's, again, living on planet God. It's very exciting. It's disturbing at times, but it's exciting because we get it, and we talk about it, and we act on it, and we understand what's going to happen. And a lot of this stuff's going to be talked about by the speakers at Gold Rush 2011.
Well, we can only hope the other 98% of people on planet God will wake up. Thanks, Bill.
Hey, Bill, I want to get practical here a second. In your opinion, what should the average hardworking American or global citizen do to prepare for what we see coming?
Well, it sort of begs the question with me, as you can probably imagine, because I would say, get yourself a chunk of gold, silver, and the best buys today are a lot of these, get a combination of these gold and silver stocks in the junior exploration sector, which many of them haven't done anything in years. It's just, markets get in favor, markets get out of favor. And that, you're buying gold at $500, $600, $700 an ounce, and silver at 12. I mean, these stocks, a lot of them have just been dead in the water. So when the general public comes in, and they will, that's how far away with this, these things will go up 1,000 to 2,000%. So the average person should pay attention to probably people like you guys and Gata and what I have to say in the commentary, and at least have some exposure to this, to gold, silver, and some of the shares.
Okay, I agree with that. Let me ask you one more. Do you believe that there will be enough political will from the people to have these manipulative perpetrators prosecuted?
I don't know, because right now people it's funny. People are funny. They didn't want to hear about it. They don't want to know. They don't want to understand that they didn't know what was going on during their lives. They just don't want to hear about it. They can't believe it can be. They don't want to deal with it. They're in denial. And we know that because we would have a lot more followers if that weren't the case, or we'd have the press be able to talk about us. I mean, people just don't want to go there. I think the only way anything will ever happen is if things blow up. Then I think we might have more of a say in our understanding of why it blew up and who was responsible. Something could happen, but people got their own things they want to do. Again, it's the arty. These big moves in gold and silver, all this bonanza money made, people that own it. Incredible investment. No one ever, until a little bit more lately with the recent moves, but, how many people are involved in it? Very few.
Yeah, I agree.
So they don't care about gold and silver. When it comes to a collapse, everyone's going to be screaming, and, the talk's going to be nuts. Maybe one day someone will trot out our ad again that we paid $250,000 for and say, look, this is what it was all about.
Yep, I agree. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Odinson.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
I'm really sorry about missing that last question. Something happened here. I'm not sure what it was. So my first question for you, let's suppose some time has passed. We are into future viewing here, after all. And either the whistle has been successfully blown, or the market has finally overwhelmed the manipulation, and gold and silver has finally begun to float. What's the next step after that?
What do you mean by the next step now? I want to make sure I try to answer this right.
Well, we're talking about the metals have floated, and the market has taken back over. What do we do then? I mean, it seems to me that there's going to be lots of secondary consequences.
Party! We have a lot of money!
I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm serious. I'm a party. I like to party, and I have a good time and celebrate life. And, I don't want to be a curmudgeon and an angry old guy. I want to be a partying old guy. And let somebody else run the next thing like we do. And, I think it's just going to be, because when things let go, the prices are going to be sky high, and once they've lost control, that sort of game's over. And at some point, they're going to need to go find more gold and silver if they can. And I don't think the prices will collapse, but the big moves, the big money will have been made. The scandal will be out there. Who knows? Maybe we'll just go on a speaking circuit for a while. How's that?
Awesome. Adam Smith would be proud. So I got a follow-up for you here. Will the method of destruction determine the next step for America and the globe? So, in other words, the type or the method of the crash, will that determine what happens next?
It could. I think America's already, their influence is going down all the time. They're talking about other reserve currencies and, trading in other currencies and, all of these empires that do what we do, they go down. I mean, the Romans, the British, we've overextended in terms of all our armies. We're broke. When our economy goes, I mean, we have emerging countries now and other economies picking up relative to ours is in the tank. I mean, even China, growing 8, 9, 10% a year, and the irony is the Chinese are probably more free market than we are. That is bizarre. I mean, because our markets are controlled. There's more freedom there, I think, in some ways. I mean, not in terms of what you can say and that kind of thing, but probably in terms of the way their markets run than what we got, which is just mind blowing. But that's the way I see it. So I just think our influence is
circle of life.
Yeah, I think our influence is fading. The fact that we can't get our fiscal house in order, or no one's taking any responsibility. People are losing. Look, even in Europe, they're raising interest rates, or they're doing certain things. We're doing nothing. And we have this pitiful, tap dance between the Democrats and Republicans ahead of the debt ceiling, race, on August 2nd. It's just silly. It's so boring. I mean, I don't even want to listen to it. Like a bunch of little children talking to each other. They got to have to talk to the American public and say, hey, we got to fix things, and it's not going to be pleasant. Until they do that, forget about it.
You just led perfectly into my next question. Do you think the American debt is unserviceable, personal and public?
It certainly looks that way. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but I mean, they're doing nothing about it. And we'll see, they'll do nothing again. And then anything they say they're going to do, it's over the next 10 years. Huh? You got to do it now, because can you imagine? Things are bad now with interest rates near zero. Longer-term rates a little higher. What happens when our interest rates start to go way up? How are they going to service the debt?
They can. I mean, there's going to be a cap on the maximum interest rate. We sure can't push it back up to 18 like we did on a Volcker.
Well, I don't know, but I'm saying you're right. But this is going to be. I mean, what's going to happen then? Things are bad now. What's going to happen? I mean, and of course, the longer they keep interest rates at zero, the greater the inflationary pull is in the United States. So we're doing nothing, and eventually everyone's going to say these people won't do anything. And I'll be surprised if the dollar, doesn't collapse at some point.
Okay, I tend to agree. And actually, I'm curious, do you think that that's going to come from the rejection via foreign investors, domestic debtors' failure, both, or something else?
Well, of course, the ones that invest in this, the Chinese and some other people, the Japanese, they don't want anything to tank because they don't want their money to go down the drain, So everyone has to be a little careful about not pushing too hard here or there. But I think eventually, the foreigners are just going to start pulling money out of here. That's my guess.
Okay, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Hi, Bill. It's Brad again. You've mentioned your conference in London. I just wondered if you could give us a bit of a breakdown of that. Are there any places left? Who's attending? And what's the kind of general synopsis?
Excuse me for interrupting. It's pretty exciting. We only have room for. Here's the schedule. We have a Thursday night reception. It's going to be fun, little blackjack tables, and say hello to people, and it's all casual except the. Well, then we have the speakers the next day, which you'll get into, and have a lunch, which people stay together, which is different than most conferences. Dinner that night. Eric Spott's the speaker. Dancing afterwards. We supposedly got the best DJ in London, and then Sunday another day till around 3:34, about 4 in the afternoon, and another cocktail party afterwards, and that's it. And optional for people that want to go, that are hanging around. We're going to have a cruise on the Thames the next day from Monday to from 1 to 4.
Oh,
Just casual. We're just again, the whole thing is that we want the speakers to mingle with people, and the people get to know each other and make friends. And a lot of conferences I know that I go, I speak and I run away, I'll be honest with you. And this is going to be, we hope, different. It's the way it was at Gold Rush 21, and we're hoping to make it more like that in the 6th-year anniversary of it. We hope to have a press conference, and if they come in, someone writes about it ahead of time and right before the reception. But we know my feeling there, and this would be a miracle if that happens. But the speakers are incredible. I said, as I mentioned earlier, John Embry and Eric Sprott, James Turk, this guy James McShirley, who is one of our superstars, and we clinically, show how the market. Pardon?
He's the 2% guy, isn't he? He's the guy that found the manipulation stopping at 1% and 2%. Is that right?
That's James, and again, he's got it all documented, and he knows the futures market. Why he knows he's the CEO of a lumber company. He's traded futures many years. So we have pros like that. You've got Adrian Douglas. You've got this guy Jim Rickards, who was head of Omni Capital, who was the LTCM's lawyer. Ben Davies. They said Indy Capital. Then there's Hugo Salinas Price, one of the richest men in Mexico, Mr. Silver of Mexico, Peter George, and Mr. Gold of South Africa, Andrew McGuire, the whistleblower.
Amazing, all-star casting.
Oh, this is as good as it gets. And
is Jeff Christian going? Is he?
We see. This is what gets me. This guy's freaking old wacko. I swear to God. We speak at the Silver Summit. It's the one conference he goes to that I go to.
Yeah.
Well, and he wants to, supposedly he just challenged me to a debate, I guess the one coming up in October. But get this, 2 years ago, and it was in front of everybody, he said the price of gold was under $1,000. He said the price of gold was going to average $946 for the next decade.
Yeah.
Now, how wrong? And when we were at the Silver Summit last October, he and John Nadler of Kitco were there pounding the table. They were betting on silver. Lost my train. Jeff Franklin, the spot, and myself were pounding the table bullish. The silver goes from 23 to 50. I don't even know how these guys can show their faces anyplace. I mean, it's one thing to be wrong, but it's one thing to be arrogant and wrong, and then and still get on our case when we've been so right. I don't know how they can. It's just they're laughable.
You may get a better reception in London. I don't know if you've heard the news about the media in London at the moment. The troubles that the Murdoch empire are having.
Yes, I know. Maybe the that's kind of a scandal will lead the media to want to look for more of a just as big a scandal, which is what we have.
Yeah, it's worldwide. It's enormous, isn't it? That's great. Thanks a lot, Bill. Thank you very much. Cheers.
My pleasure.
Vito, did you have one more question?
Yes, I do. Bill, I just wanted to congratulate GATA on their recent victory versus the Federal Reserve over their withholding gold-related documents in spite of the Freedom of Information Act, in which GATA was awarded $2,870. And also, I just wanted to tell you that Christmas came early for me one year when, on January 31st, 2008, GATA put in a full-page ad in the Wall Street Journal, which cost you guys $264,000, exposing the fact that the U.S. gold reserves have not had a independent and full audit in over 50 years. And I thank you personally for that. It was a great day for me. And I always listen to every interview you ever do on goldseek.com with Chris Waltzek. I like your La Metropole work that you do. And my one final dark question for you is, it appears to me that all the same players, being J.P. Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and this time Archer Daniels Midland, it appears to me that all these guys are fixing the food prices, and that perhaps we're in store for some exciting times ahead of us. Do you perceive this to be true?
I honestly haven't followed it that closely, so I don't want to get into something again that I haven't thought about. No, but nothing would surprise me after what I've learned about the gold and silver markets and what goes on maybe in the medical industry. It's what's really going on behind the scenes is really an eye opener. I will go real quickly before we go here on we sued the Fed and what you were talking about, and a judge. We're asking about what kind of gold swap operation they have and what's going on and so on, because one of their federal Board of Governors, a guy named Warsh, mentioned it, and we got and it's in a letter to us, and but he didn't. He was just vague, and he didn't say anything. So we went back to the Fed under the Freedom of Information Act to sue them about information about. President Obama says, get the truth out there, be transparent. Well, of course, they came back, with 10 questions or something like that, and they wouldn't want to answer any, and the judge ruled they didn't have to answer 9, but did have to answer 1, and because of that, what is there not to talk about? The gold's supposed to be just sitting there. But we know that something's wrong, and, of course, just by them not answering the question says something wrong, but the one the judge forced them to, and then in doing so, had them give us the amount of money you said, that $2,800 for our legal fees. And so, while it wasn't a total victory, it surely was a victory, as you said, and it's a big deal for us because, again, it's simple. What is there not to talk about? It's so silly, this stuff. But it's actually a big league thing. Again, as I mentioned twice before, they'd rather talk about our nuclear secrets than the gold secrets. And that's what we're trying to expose. So thank you for your for what you said, and I'm glad it was you appreciate it. At least we know there was somebody out there that did.
Well, it really is appreciated.
In terms of the ad is really what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's been a great journey. As I said, I've met a whole bunch of great people, and most interesting thing I've ever done in my life, and most rewarding, and the culmination of all this is going to be our trip to London, and I leave 2 weeks from tomorrow, so I'm getting pretty pumped up for it.
Well, I sure wish I could be there, and I just got to tell you, I appreciate what you do, and I know you're helping the world, and you give us hope.
Thank you. Well, we do what we can.
Okay, Bill, this is Romans. I want to thank you on behalf of everybody on the WebBot Forum very much for your time tonight. We really appreciated your candidness and your excellent answers to our questions. It's really been an honor to chat with you, and we hope this has been as enjoyable for you as it has been for us.
Oh, yeah, no, this was terrific. It gets me warmed up for my conference, and the questions were terrific, and I thought spot on, and it's been a good hour and a half, and I said I enjoyed it, and I'll thank you.
Well, that's great. We'll certainly be pulling for continued success of GATA and yourself, and hopefully this continued fight against the gold and silver market manipulation will reach fruition at some point here in not too distant future. We hope you have a great conference over there in London. That's coming up in August, I believe. And listeners, once again, you can learn more and support GATA at gata.org. You can also visit and become involved in Bill's blog at Bill Murphy's Cyberspace Cafe for gold investors at lametropolecafe.com. On behalf of Fox and all the members of the WebBot Forum, we thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
And in our own WebBot Forum tradition, may you and your family have many of your favorite pies to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Cheers, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bill. It was great.
Thanks, Bill.
Have a nice summer. Bye-bye.